a warrior mindset. So we cultivate the way of the warrior in the practice. What is that versus a victim mindset?
Embedded in the word warrior is the word war. One of war. One who can go to war. And what is embedded in the concept of war is an enemy, or an oppositional force, an opposing force. Something to either overcome, or to rebel against, or to repel, or to fight against. A victim is somebody who has an enemy outside of themselves who they perceive to be controlling and dominant. So if there is somebody governing my life and I can't control that person, and they are impacting my life negatively, I'm a victim. I could be a victim potentially. So if I have an enemy who is another being, or a group of beings, or just whatever, some sort of enemy outside of myself, I can be a victim. But what if the war is internal? What if I'm at war with the the inclinations of my consciousness which lead me towards hatred, which lead me towards delusion, which lead me towards suffering, which lead me towards depression and misery? What if I'm at war with those things within myself? That is a warrior in the sense of how we use the term. Now, it does also apply to certain elements of the world. It's not that we're at war with other people or the government or some kind of imposed authority in our life, but we are at war with the part of us that wants to see those things as an enemy, the part of us that wants us to hate those authorities. We're at war with that within us. There is a part of our own consciousness which wants to see other people as an enemy. It wants to make an enemy of others. It wants to hate other people. It wants to judge people critically. It wants to judge ourselves negatively. It wants to give up on life. It wants to retreat from putting in effort. It wants to run from the things that it's afraid of. And we are at war with that part of ourselves. We call it ego. Now, you have to be a little bit careful because the war is part of the ego. The kind of experience that we have is in love, loving the part of us, helping the part of us that wants to run, that wants to retreat, helping the part of us that's afraid of conflict. We don't run from that part of us, and we don't allow that part of us to run. Like a loving father or a loving mother, we stand by its side. And so, we stand by its side and encourage that part of us to face the fear, to get up each day, to do the discipline, to work, to keep living, to keep pushing, to keep going, never to give up. And that kind of warrior is like a warrior in love. A warrior that is not afraid of putting in the effort, of doing what needs to be done, of conquering the challenge, of overcoming the difficulty. The kind of warrior that can love their enemy, even though they don't really have any enemies. My teacher once said to me something along the lines of, like, it's easy to love people who are nice to you, who are friendly to you, who are kind to you, but can you love the people that you are inclined to hate? The people you judge so harshly, so negatively, can you genuinely conjure sincere compassion and understanding for those people. And that's the kind of battle, if you imagine a warrior must walk into battle and be prepared to stand up for and defend the things they love. Can you look into a person who is maybe very negative and a little bit toxic, people who are destructive, a species, a humanity that is quite insane? Can you see into them enough to see the heart, to see the spirit behind all of the suffering? And can you connect with that spirit? Can you go to work for that spirit to help those people overcome their misery, their confusion, their hatred, their delusion? That's a warrior, somebody who can do that, even when you don't want to, even when sometimes it hurts you, even when it requires that you repeatedly put in effort day after day after day, and they don't see it, and they don't get it, and they don't know it, but you don't give up, because you're a warrior, and you have no choice. You choose to have no choice. That person can't be a victim. If you're a warrior, it's impossible to be a victim. And one of the difficulties that people have with this is the element of choice. If you can genuinely see in your life that you've made these choices, at various stages in your life, you have chosen to think a certain way, to see people a certain way, to put yourself in certain environments, which led to certain outcomes which you then believed yourself to be a victim of at the time, but now you can see your own responsibility in it. One of the reasons that's difficult for people, or can be difficult for people, is you can potentially, in your thinking, go back to a point in your childhood where you say, well, I didn't choose the life that I had as a baby. I didn't choose how I was raised. Okay, so if your perception of your life only goes back to the point of birth, then you can say that that's true. But if your perception of your life goes beyond birth, because you have a deeper insight into the nature of karma, you'll know that you are fully in charge of that too. You put yourself right here, smack bang in the middle of this experience which you have been rebelling against, blaming somebody else for. From the enlightened point of view, there is absolutely nobody else to blame. And if you have the capacity to control your own responses to life, meaning if people are assholes to you, you have the ability to choose whether or not to respond to them, then there is nobody to blame for you getting angry, for you getting upset, for you being offended by another person's existence or words or views or whatever. You can't blame somebody else for the fact that you're getting upset. Why are you listening to them? Why are you interpreting their words in that way? Why are you allowing their views into your consciousness to become such a toxic and negative internal experience for you? Why are you allowing that to happen? But people don't realize that they're actually, potentially, they are responsible for that. They are responsible for their own responses to life. In the same way, if you have been a victim of a very difficult childhood, there are multiple ways to look at that, to look at the challenge of such a difficult, and I'm referring to potentially what could have been a very horrific childhood. If you understand that the kind of strength that you will gain from pushing a heavy, heavy burden up a hill will make you into something, a kind of being that your strength, your insight, your capability far surpasses most other people. Would you welcome such a burden? Are you the kind of person that could welcome such a challenge to overcome such a difficult experience? Or do you see it as a punishment of some kind? There are multiple ways to look at the challenge of pushing a heavy burden up a hill, carrying a heavy burden up a hill. One way to look at it is as a heavy weight that if you can gently learn to build up the fortitude, the willpower, the courage, the strength, the determination to eventually reach the peak of that mountain while carrying that burden, well, you will have a capacity and a capability that far surpasses most other human beings. Would you rebel against such an opportunity to carry such a burden, or would you embrace that? A warrior would embrace it. A victim would moan about it, complain about it, cry about it, act like it was unfair. What the opportunity for you to become a more evolved and advanced specimen of the human species is an unfair opportunity. What, unfair to everybody else, because they don't get to have the same chance that you do. I once learned about a woman who suffered horrendously. I wish I could remember her name. In fact, I only heard about this once, and it was a kind of a fleeting knowledge. I didn't study this woman. I didn't even retain her name. It was just a passing occurrence once, but it was so profound to me, what it revealed to me. This woman had been subject to human trafficking, sexual slavery, and had been subject to it for many, many years. The worst kind of possible experience you could imagine as a woman, being kidnapped and taken from family and trafficked to sadistic, disgusting people, and subject to all kinds of horrific abuse. Basically, the worst kind of things you can imagine. Entertaining demonic desire in other men or people. This experience, though, allowed her, actually forged her consciousness in a way whereby, because of what she went through, she came out of it eventually. Somehow she managed to escape. She turned her entire life to helping other young girls in similar situations, to help get them out of this situation. So because of the horrific suffering that she was subject to, she became a warrior, a force for pulling other human beings out of hell. So she embraced it as an opportunity to become something that no one else can become. Would you put yourself in that situation to gain insight, to cultivate the kind of strength and the kind of spirit that it would take to be able to do that for other girls, thousands of other women that you could pull out of hell? You must have walked through that hell yourself. So from a spiritual point of view, could you subject yourself to that? Or do you see yourself as a victim, as if, does that maybe hint at what you're wanting to discuss?
Mm-hmm. It does.
It's all about how you look at it,
Yeah.
how you look at what's going on. And if you can cultivate the deepest kind of insight, as in enlightened insight into the nature of karma, the nature of life, you will see there really is nobody else at work here. There is no other spirit. There is no second spirit of life to blame for how things are. That just does not exist. At the deepest possible level, we are absolutely, solely responsible for our life and what happens as a species, as a collective, as an individual. There is nobody else at work here. Now, if you can embrace that truly, and the only way to truly embrace that is to go very deep and see it for yourself, you'll realize also that realization is combined with the nature of eternity, the nature of unending life, never-ending manifestation of form. What are you going to do? Complain about it the whole time and act like a victim?
Blame everyone else.
Want to blame everyone else forever in this life and the next and the next? If you could gain the insight that revealed to you that you, your own mind, your own heart, your own consciousness created the cosmos. All form of experience manifests in your mind, and there is nothing else anywhere that exists except for that. To fully awaken to that reality means you have to get to work. It's down to you. You are the only one that can make a change. You are the only one that can transform suffering into enlightenment. The perspective of suffering into the perspective of enlightenment. Why be a victim? Why waste your time on misery and complaining when you can get to work helping and transforming the situation. So a warrior sees that way. A warrior lives that way. At the same time, a warrior meditates very deeply on the question of, what do I give my life for? What do I dedicate my life to? I have a certain amount of time to live as a body, in this body, with this opportunity at the moment, in this place, on this earth. What do I give my life? I have a certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy that I can apply. What do I give this energy to? What do I dedicate it to? What forces of life, what areas of life do I live for? Knowing that I will die one day, I will put this body down, knowing that all of that effort and energy that I have put in has gone to that force and will dictate my ongoing experience, because that's the nature of karma. So these questions a warrior would raise and meditate on and reflect on, and then make a heartfelt decision to live daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, eternally, if you want to go all the way with it, in that way. The way of the warrior, it is known as.